Hello AP Psychology students, welcome to a video lecture of today's lesson due to the fact that I am out of town. I'm in Chicago today and I'll also be there tomorrow. I'll be back by next Monday. So today and tomorrow you're going to be getting these video lectures that cover the material that we would be covering on cognitive psychology if we were together. And you are kind of doing this asynchronously on your own time and hopefully during the class time using it actually well. So hopefully this process goes well for you. Our plan for today specifically is we are going to continue on in the notes on cognitive psychology. And then after I get through this video, you are going to be reflecting on what you learned by responding to this question right here. It's posted at this point. It should be as you're watching this video. So this says 12/5/24 reflection on video lecture. Just 2 questions, although number 2 actually has 3 things in it, so I guess you're responding to 4 things total as you go through it. And there's also another video to watch. It's only 4 minutes long, but once you're done with this video, you're going to go to this question. You should be able to type up a response to number 1 on this question, but then for number 2, you're going to potentially need to watch this video, which is going to unpack some of the stuff that we are learning about today in our video lecture. All right, so if you want to follow along with me in the notes, you can. And we'll go from there. So just a reminder on where we left off class yesterday. I kind of sped things along knowing that I would be gone for this lesson, so I think I should have already done the long-term memory retrieval thing where I gave you the retrieval cues of like precious stone, U.S. state, rapper, president, etc. And the hopeful thing was that you noted that you went from not being able to remember more than a handful of things to remembering almost all of them, and in some cases some of you might have got all of them with the retrieval cues. So that's going to be what we're talking about today, is we're going to be talking about retrieving memories and the importance of retrieval cues in that process. Okay, so retrieval cues, as I briefly mentioned in class yesterday, but we didn't really have time to get into your notes, are any kind of stimulus that can help bring a memory back to mind. Okay, so these could be visual things that help trigger a memory, right? Like maybe I see my car out my window right now and then I'm reminded that I still haven't fixed the back wheel on it. And so I'm like, oh shoot, that's right, I got to do that. So a visual retrieval cue. It could be someone prompting you by saying, hey, like, what's the capital of Argentina? You're like, oh shoot, what is that? And then I'm like, hey, it starts with a B. And being told some sort of verbal thing triggers a thought like B, oh, Buenos Aires, right? So having a verbal thing or a physical thing that I can see, anything that really brings a memory back to mind or gives my brain an opportunity to access that memory is a retrieval cue, okay? Now, when we have retrieval cues, we are doing a process called recognition. So when it comes to retrieving memories out of our long-term storage, we've kind of talked about how we form memories and the types of memories at this point, but we haven't really talked too much about getting them out of our mind. There's kind of 2 main processes by which we retrieve memories. One of them is called recall, and one of them is called recognition. Essentially, this gets into the difference about whether or not you have a retrieval cue or you don't. So recall is when you're doing total recall, means you are accessing a memory without there being a specific retrieval cue right in front of you. Recognition, on the other hand, is when you are remembering something, but there's a very specific retrieval cue in front of you that's going to help bring it to mind. I think probably the best way to illustrate the difference between recall and recognition is what you have to do when it comes to taking tests. So most of us probably prefer taking a multiple choice test. Why? Well, the answer is in front of you. All you have to do is recognize, hence the word recognition here, the right answer, right? If it's right there in front of you, A, B, C, or D, recognition is a lot easier, right? Because the retrieval cue is there. You read the description of what the term or concept or question is about, and then you just have to pull it out from one of the options in front of you. Recall, on the other hand, is more like what you're doing with a fill-in-the-blank question or a short answer question or an essay. The answer might not be there. You might not be able to just recognize it. You have to come up with it on your own, potentially without a retrieval cue. And so recall versus recognition are 2 ways that we bring retrieval of memories back to mind. With retrieval cues, it's obviously much easier. And so our goal when we are learning material and storing them in our mind is to try to make as many connections in our mind, because that's creating more retrieval cues that are accessible, whether it's a mnemonic device or a specific strategy of the way I studied or coming up with more examples of a term. The more I can do to form connections to possible retrieval cues, the better I'm going to be able to recall that information. Okay. I've got a quick little demonstration that goes into the power of having retrieval cues and the difference between recall versus recognition. So this is going to test your knowledge of Disney material. So what you can do on your own right now is, if you have a scratched piece of paper or you're taking notes on this lesson, you can just have a piece of paper in front of you. If you need to go find a piece of paper from a friend or from the substitute teacher, you can pause this video and come back. But I'm going to be testing your knowledge here of Disney princesses as well as the Seven Dwarfs. So check this out. So the first thing I'm going to have you do, and you can pause this video, I'm going to not give you the appropriate wait time you need, but I want you to right now pause this video and write down as many Disney princesses as you possibly can. Okay, and I know that there's a debate out there about like which ones count and which ones don't, but do your best to try to recall as many as possible. And in this moment, we are doing recall, because there is no retrieval cue. I mean, I guess the closest thing you get is the Disney castle in the background, but you don't have specific retrieval cues in front of you otherwise. So see if you can do that and write down as many as possible. So hopefully now you actually spent some time doing that and you unpause this video, you're going to move on. What I have on the next slide is your ability to do recognition. So this is a list of a ton of different names, and some of them on here are names of Disney princesses, some of them are not. And now you're doing a process called recognition. So here you are using the retrieval cues of the visual information in front of you to recognize the right answers. So you can pause this video again and add to your list, because more than likely there's some that you missed, would be my guess. And this list should help you get a lot more. And again, it's easier to recall names, or to recognize names rather, when they are right in front of you as compared to total recall. Okay, so here are your right answers. I'll reveal them to you, at least the ones that I have. There's some people that say I should be adding more of these because they're, Disney princess trivia experts, and I'm missing people, but I did what I could. In terms of the ones that are in red on here are the ones that you should potentially know. Okay, and again, I guess the takeaway here is when you just have to recognize the right answers, you probably got the majority of them or a lot of them. But when recall is happening, what you did first, some of you in the room maybe had 1, 2, 3, 4, and now that you have a list in front of you, it's easier to pick out which ones are the Disney princesses. Okay, we'll do the same process with the Seven Dwarfs. So take a moment right now to see on that scratch sheet of paper, if I asked you to name the Seven Dwarfs, could you do it? Could you name Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Who are the Seven Dwarfs, the names of those individuals? So pause this video, take a chance to write it down. Now that you've had a chance, we can reveal our answers here. So this again now that was recall. Now we're moving into recognition. So some of them are real on here, some of them are fake. But as you look over this list, hopefully recognizing with the retrieval cues in front of you which ones are the right answers, you should be able to pick out a few extra ones and eliminate the ones that are not on there. Okay, so you can pause the video again if you want to and add to your list. But I'll move us along now to the right answers. So the right answers: sleepy, grumpy, happy, sneezy, dopey, bashful, and doc. So hopefully you got those ones. So anyways, the big takeaway from this is that when it comes to recall versus recognition, two different processes of retrieving memories. Recall is harder. Recognition, when the answer is in front of you and you have a retrieval cue, is much more easier and straightforward. Okay. One more slide for us here, and put my video up there. Then this is going to be what the other video is about that you're going to add to your understanding and learning of here. Okay. So when it comes to retrieval cues and remembering information, it is often easier to remember that information when we are in a similar state of mind, a similar physical location, and a similar mood as when we first had that memory. Okay, so this gets into what is called mood congruent memories, context dependent memories, and state dependent memories. Okay, so these are all well researched found findings. And mood congruent would be the first one here. It's the idea that if I form a memory in a specific mood, let's say I had a really terrible experience back in the past that left me crying and distraught, and I'm very sad about whatever it is. If I get into a similar mood later in life, a similar emotional state, it could be the case that my earlier memory that I was also sad by all of a sudden is triggered. So being in the same mood, whether it's happiness or sadness, can sometimes help trigger earlier memories in which I was in a similar mood. Okay, that's called mood congruent. Context-dependent memory, this is the idea that we are better able to remember something when we're in a similar physical location. So we've probably all had this experience where, let's say you're sitting in the living room at the couch, and all of a sudden you think, oh, that's right, I got to get that thing from my bedroom or from the kitchen or wherever you're going. So you get up and you start walking that way. A couple steps into the journey, you get towards where you are going, and when you arrive, you go, what am I doing again? Why am I here? Right? You forget why you came to your bedroom or to the kitchen. So how do you remember it? Well, you retrace your steps, right? You turn around, you walk back to the couch, and as soon as you get into the same physical location of when you had that memory, right? You're back to the couch, you sit back down, all of a sudden, that's it. That's right. And then you remember you were going to get that pen or whatever it is. And so you stand back up and go on. So that's the idea of context-dependent memory. Now, in theory, this should work when it comes to learning material as well. So like classroom learning, I do think there is some evidence that backs up this idea that being in the same physical location, like the same desk or around the same people, anything you can do to match the physical environment to where you learn the material is going to better help you retrieve that memory later on. Okay, so not switching up your seats and going and sitting in random spots is probably best for you. Now, obviously, we're not great practitioners of this because we switch between the HLR and in class, but at least when it comes to reviewing the material, we do our reviews in class, in the classroom here, and then you take a test in the classroom here. But there is evidence to back up that idea. That's context-dependent memory. And then the last one down there is state-dependent memory. This is just kind of the same idea about our state of consciousness. So different than mood, different than the physical location, but more so like your mindset, I guess is a way of saying it. So this could be, for example, if you're in a physical state of being on a certain stimulant. Let's say you drink caffeine on a daily basis. I drink caffeine on a daily basis, morning coffee. There's evidence to support the idea that if you can try to match that same state of consciousness, this state of being that you're in, the better you're going to be able to retrieve that memory later on. If you chew gum, right, when you are learning, in theory you should be chewing gum and having those flavors in your mouth when you actually take a test. Or if you are someone who drinks from your water bottle constantly while you're learning, being in a similar state will help trigger that. Well hydrated, I guess. So this one's more about kind of your physical state of consciousness that helps kind of spark a memory potentially. So all three of these are different things that are essentially retrieval cues that help bring memories back to mind. Being in the same mood, being in the same physical location, or being in the same state of consciousness. All right, state-dependent memory. All right. That is it for our notes section, at least for today. What you're going to do now is you're going to find this in Google Classroom. You should now be able to reflect on, number one, recall versus recognition. Relate it to what we just did with the Disney Princesses and the Seven Dwarfs demonstration and explain how that was easier / harder based on those two terms. And then what you're going to want to do is, if you haven't already, you're going to watch this short video that has a few additional examples of mood congruent, context-dependent memory, and state-dependent memory. And then your job is essentially to provide an example either from the video itself or your own example of when you've experienced something like this. Okay? And that is it for today. So shouldn't take you much more than probably 5 to 10 more minutes. And then tomorrow we'll continue on with our learning and go through another chunk of notes. See you then. Bye.